welcome to the Spooky Chris podcast. My name is Chris Ringler, and this is my micro podcast. I do these every so often, just kind of spilling the guts in my mind, talk about random stuff, once around movies, but you'll see. I am an author, blogger, podcaster, couple-time filmmaker, living in Michigan. And a series of events had kind of made me want to ramble about this and the idea of keeping going, basically, like the whole kind of keep going mentality. And sometimes you do things and say things and write things for yourself as much as anyone else. So this is for anyone that gets something is awesome, but this is as much for myself as anyone else, because sometimes I think we all forget to keep going. I don't know how many people over the many, many years I've run into who will say, man, like I need to finish that book. I need to finish that, writing that book. I need to finish doing this. I need to finish that. Oh gosh, I need to do this or that, or I always wanted to do something. And it's not like a menial task. It is something like a big deal thing that someone has their soul and kind of invested in, and they have let it get out of their grasp. I mean, you get that a lot with books, and that's when I've heard the most. Our folks are like, man, I really need to finish writing my book. And I get it, having written a couple. I get that, because something like that, and again, it's all of these are daunting, but with a book, I think you feel like the weight of page numbers. I had that with something I wrote recently, where it was something I kind of wrote for someone. I was tasked to write something I'd never written before, and out of just kind of like, I did it, and I'll get to that. But it was hard, and I don't know if I would have finished it if I didn't have kind of the self-evolved discipline of just like keeping going. And a lot of this is going to sound cliche, and I'll try to kind of make it so it's not as cliche. I'm not going to just give you like, oh hey, keep in there, kid. Good luck with the girls. But there's a point where these kind of phrases and sayings, we hear them so often because there's a truism to them. And part of, one of those truisms is you got to be there sometimes. That's the whole thing, is if you don't show up in some capacity, you're going to miss out. And I've had that happen bunches of times in my life. I mean, one of those times is that recent writing project. Someone I know got a hold of me, said, hey, I'm looking for someone to write XYZ, a certain type of a story. I was like, do you know anybody? It's like, no, I don't really. It's not something anybody I know. It's not their wheelhouse. I was like, okay, well, if you think of something, let me know. So I let it go. I stewed on it, and and again, it was nothing I'd ever written at all, not even really close. I stewed on it, and every time I ever am offered opportunities like that, or any kind of opportunities, generally, I tend to pass them up. It's kind of a self-effacing thing, as much as I won't sign on or on two things or on four things that I don't think I'm suited for. I was actually just approached about something the other day, and it was to honor children's authors, and I, was like, cool, great, like it's somebody I know had gotten hold of me, that's great, but I don't know that I would consider myself a children's author, considering I know some, and there are so many great ones. It was, specifically for our state, and I was like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with this. Look over my stuff and you decide, because I don't want someone to regret it, and I don't want to be embarrassed. So there's definitely self-preservation. But I mean, that's kind of my mentality on that stuff, is that I don't want to sign up for something that I'm going to feel foolish about, and I don't want to have it be someone else is going to feel foolish for trusting in me. But yeah, I did that writing project, and I didn't know if I could do it. It turned out, it had to be around novel length, and it was on a kind of a soft deadline, though as it neared the end, like they were kind of like, where are you at on that? And I was shocked. I busted it out in 30 days. And I've kind of done that before, and that was still having trouble kind of like getting through it. I kept kind of running into kind of deep mud, as it were. But I still knocked it out. And I'm happy that I did. I like what it turned out to be. I think there's more that could be done with it. But I like the way it came out. And it wouldn't, I wouldn't have ever written anything like that, or never would have written that specifically had I not just said yes and took a chance. I remember a long time ago, back in the 90s, a friend and I did zines, which zines, and I've mentioned zines before. Zines are a kind of a fan-made, fan-oriented magazine. For ours, we would write them up. I'd write my stuff on word processor. We'd do it on a computer. You print it off. You kind of pretty it up with cutouts from magazines and newspapers and drawings, and you put it all together and photocopy it and staple it together, and there you go. Well, somebody was with our little group approached a comic book guy with the magazine, with our zine, and the dude loved the name and was like, "Hey, if I can help you, let me know." And our friend reached out and was like, "Hey, you offered to help. How can you help?" And we ended up going national for one issue. Now that's a whole story in and of itself. And I've blogged about it like several times. I don't think I've ever podcasted about it. And it didn't work out the way we would have hoped. We only did the one issue because the guy was a comic guy, and he pitched it to comic shops, and he pitched it as a comic type of thing, and it wasn't. We were, I don't even know if I still know how to explain what we were. We were snark and sass and attitude. We were 18 years old and thought we ruled the world. And there's a lot of clever stuff in it, and there's a lot of embarrassing stuff. But again, I think there would have been a market for us, and we had actually been told they quote unquote broke even on it, but they just decided never to, not to do a second issue. But the experience of it and having been able to do that would have never happened had our friend not said yes to the guy and not kind of just had we not just seen the project through. And there's so many things like that unless you take that chance, and it is a chance, because you can fall on your face. You can make a fool of yourself. I remember, I went to World HorrorCon in 2005, and read a story, and I look at the story now, and I'm a much better writer than I was then. But I read the story because I had kind of a story thing where you could read in front of a bunch of well-regarded and published authors, and kind of, just see what they say, kind of. It was kind of contesty, but I volunteered and read, I guess that was my weekend to kind of just live it up and just do weird stuff I don't do. And I read it, and there was legit a best-selling author on that panel. And it turned out pretty cool. I didn't make a fool of myself. I ended up making a friend from it because this young woman approached me afterwards and said, "Oh, hey, you read this, blah blah." And we ended up talking, and we were friends for a while. And just fell out of touch. And I don't regret it. I ran into the author in an elevator, and and he unprovoked, he commented that he liked my story. I don't know if he did or not. It was just me and him in the elevator. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to make it weird, but maybe he lied, maybe he told the truth. I don't know. But I wouldn't have had any of that if I hadn't just taken the chance. And so many times we just kind of talk ourselves out of things, like, oh, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to go there, I'm not going to do this. And I don't know how many friends I would have missed out on, how many adventures, had I not gone and just done something. Especially if it's out of my comfort zone. Now, again, there's different levels of comfort, but taking an adventure. I don't know how much I would have missed out on. And obviously, there's things that you always choose a path, and sometimes choosing the path that isn't that way leads you to something better. But when it comes to projects and stuff, I mean, truly, and again, it is a discipline thing. You have to see it through. And more than anything, it's a matter of doing it for yourself. Because you don't know that anyone will care about the record you just, recorded, or the story you wrote, or the poem you wrote, or the painting you did, or the photograph you took, or the dance that you just created. I mean, that's the crappy thing about the creative arts, is you, in many ways, are on that tightrope alone. And stand or fall, it's up to, it's going to be you. Even if you're in a band, if you screw it up, like, everyone's going to look at you, not necessarily the band. And so it's hard. It's hard to risk that. You certainly don't want to quit your day job, as it were, because you got, a show at a bar playing guitar. But maybe you take that show, and maybe somebody else sees you and has another gig for you, or has another opportunity. And it's the willingness to put yourself out there and to see what happens. That's what matters. And to not give up. Again, like I don't know how many times I've sworn off writing, and only to keep going. I think it's, again, with the creative endeavors, I think it's easy for us to do that when we get frustrated and upset and just kind of defeated. It's like, I'm done with it. And I mean, for sure, I have tapered, what I do off, just because I'm older and have a job and have, a family and such, and I just can't do what I did when I was younger. When it comes to that stuff, I can't just do every show and all that. But I never stopped, really. In the last few years, I've almost been more productive. And that's the thing, too, is if you stop, like, you won't keep growing, you won't keep learning, you won't keep evolving that skill, that talent, you won't develop it. You don't learn to play guitar overnight. It takes, hours and hours and hours of practice and learning and playing songs from other people, like playing other people's things, and learning why that's a good song and what makes it tick and how you can incorporate that into what you want to do. And once you kind of give up, you give up on all of it. And I mean, let's face it, every kid that starts a rock band isn't going to become a professional musician. Every one of us that writes a story isn't going to become a famous author, even a professional author that you write full time. Unfortunately, these artistic endeavors don't often lead to fame, riches, glory as we would like. But the things we get out of them are much better sometimes, because we learn about ourselves, we learn about the world, we make friends. Gosh, I don't know how many friends I've made. Like when I started the horror collective that we do here, our little merry band of weirdos that do conventions and events and stuff. I started that on $800 and a dream. I reached out to friends and asked them to become a part of it, and it was through that we all kind of put our heads together and started connecting dots and started kind of reaching out to people, and we started building this thing. There's oceans of people I never would have met, experiences I never would have had. Just none of that had I not taken that chance. And I mean, we've limped along, but we've limped along for 10 years. And that says something, that we still are doing what we do. We evolved, we changed. Reality is not always kind, but we kept going. And that's the thing, is you can't give up. Because if you give up, no one's gonna be there to spur you on and kind of push you. And I mean, if they have to, then it's not necessarily something you should be doing anyways. Like and you'll have to push yourself. There will be times when you have no choice but to push yourself, because it's emotionally hard, it's physically hard, and it doesn't always feel like it's worth it. But being there matters. Being open to the opportunities, saying yes to things that your gut says no because you're afraid. Taking those risks. All of that builds who we are and what we're going to do and who we're going to become. All of that builds towards the future. I've had opportunities pass me by because I didn't have the guts to say yes. And I mean, sometimes some things you gotta say no, because they obviously do not fit you, and you got to know that too. You have to be self-aware enough at least to see the road ahead and say, well, I appreciate that opportunity, but that's just not really what I do, Or to say, you know what, I never have done that, but I'm willing to give it a try. And maybe it doesn't lead to anything. I don't know if this book I wrote is going to see the light of day in the venue and means that I was pitched. I just don't know. I'm still kind of in the wind on it. But I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I wrote the book. It's my book in the end. So if nobody else wants to put it out, I'll put it out. I think it's a cool little book. My novels that I had, my novel Roadkill, I had lost, and I languished for years about it, and finally rewrote it. Now, it's not like there's anybody really going out of their way to read it, but I feel better knowing that it's done, that I finally got that story out. I mean, I could have just given up on it. And that's the easiest thing to do, is to give up on these projects and these dreams. To say, well, I don't know that I understand this book I was writing, or I don't know if I feel it anymore. I'm just going to throw it away and shelve it, put it in a drawer. Which you hear all the time from authors, like, oh, that's a drawer book. And to me, it's like, keep working on it. Finish it. Finish it and see what you have. And if you truly are like, oh, yeah, no, this is nothing, then you start picking at its bones. And I guarantee there's not everything bad about it. Even if it's just ideas, you can take something from it. But you can't take anything if you don't even kind of finish what it is. Now, if it's some 1,000-page magnum opus that just you literally have no interest or your heart's not in it, well, obviously don't finish something you have to that you just are over completely, because that's just, unless you're really interested in going to put the work in editing it and kind of refining it, it's just going to be an eyesore to you and anybody who would take a look at it. So there is work involved. But, I mean, all of these things have value. The song that you write that doesn't feel right still may have a melody or lyrics or something in a hook that is compelling and leads to something else. That gig you take, that open mic you do, that reading you go to, that chance you take may open doors that you don't even realize are there. Someone will see you and go, oh gosh, yeah, like we were looking for a performer. I was looking for someone to collaborate with. Like you don't know, and so easy to talk ourselves out of these things out of laziness, out of fear of looking a fool, and we just kind of just shrug it off. I can't imagine what my life would be if, it's funny because I'll look back, so when I moved out on my own, the zines are dead, and if I had stopped writing, I don't know what because I hadn't published, I published 10 published books since 1999, and so this is the early 2000s, I don't know what I would have done. I don't know I can't imagine my life like that. Because it was more than a hobby, but it was part of me, and so it's strange to imagine what that guy ended up doing. Like I have no idea. I can't imagine it. I don't want to. So as I said, in a long-winded form, keep going. Whatever you're doing, whatever your passion, keep going. Yeah, you may never be professional. You may never get rich. You may never get famous. But you may be fulfilled. You may discover things. You may be writing fiction or poetry and realize, like, you never knew that you like to write songs. You just don't know. You don't know until you look into it. I never would have seen, I made short films with friends when I was a kid, 18. We improv stuff. We made one movie with a script, and I just can't remember things, so I was a mess. I never would have expected to make movies. I've made 2 and shot little micro shorts, a bunch of them, just by myself. Never, ever, ever would have had an interest. But I'm around filmmakers. I got an itch. A project came up that I couldn't say no to, as it were. And I'm happy I did. I don't know if I'm set to direct another one, but we'll see what happens with this weird COVID world. But it's neat, and I don't regret it at all. And those are new and unique expressions of my creativity, and I'm excited for that. Hardly anybody's ever seen them. Hardly anyone ever will see them. But they exist, and I got to work with great people, and I got to kind of do something I'd never done before, and that matters. All of this stuff matters. And a lot of it is just being there and being open to what life offers you, and once in a while saying yes to something that you are scared to death about or don't know that you can do. Yeah, maybe you fail. It happens. All you can do from that is learn, and grow and go from there. But what if you see it through? And worst thing that happens then is that you have a finished project. Yeah, maybe somebody doesn't want it per se, or in the form it's in, but you finished it and you have it. It's yours. Sometimes that's what starts everything else. It's the spark that lights the fire. And frankly, we could use all the sparks we can get, because being creative, there's always someone with a bucket of cold water. I remember, and I've blogged about it, being a kid, I used to love to draw. And I was never good. I've never been good. I'm very rudimentary. I don't like instruction. I like just to kind of learn on my own. That's how I am on that stuff. And I got into commercial art class, the 2-year program, and you had to submit a portfolio and everything, and I got into it because I was in special ed. Basically, they kind of treated me like I was the special in special ed and put me in the class, and I had with great people. I generally had fun. I wasn't awful in it, honestly, but there was a time that the guy, the instructor, who was a professional commercial artist as well as kind of our teacher, pulled me aside and said, "You're not an artist," and it killed me. And I stopped doing art for 10 plus years. And I'm not an artist. Not really. But I like to draw. I still like to draw. Look at my merch store and see my terrible art. But that's part of me. That's part of who I am. And that guy almost, quashed that passion in me. And there's always going to be those people. Be it, lovers that want to just destroy our hearts out of anger and jealousy and pettiness. Just bullies in our lives, or just people who are just downright mean. Like they're not targeting us as a bully would. They just are mean to everybody. And that's the world. And in a world like that, we need all the sparks we can get, because we need all the forward momentum and passion and juice, as it were. And it all starts, like I say, with being there and to keep going and to not give up. Because whatever you're working on, whatever passion project you have, it deserves to see completion, and then go from there. Like with me for books or stories, I do it. Even if I'm lost interest, I push my way through it, get it done, and then I put it aside and I'll figure it out later. And then I can go back and I say, oh, that was messy, that's not bad, I'll fix this. Because we need that perspective. But finish it, complete it, go through with it, be there, and see what happens. Friend, on this snowy day in February, I wish you well. Be safe, stay warm, keep that spark alive.